Hello and welcome to Industry Insights Sessions from Changing Education. My name is Amos Madra and I'm a careers advisor here at Changing Education. In this program, we get to speak to industry experts about their own career journey and get some tips and advice in how they can help you in your own career journey. Well, joining me today is Stephen Mayer, who is from Pocket Creatives. Stephen has worked through from TV broadcasts in his early career to running a corporate video company, alongside which eventually became full-time. A prolific entrepreneur, Stephen has worked with brands such as Tesco, Arcadia, British Gas, BOC, and Pringles. So believe me, when I say it, we're speaking to an expert here today. Stephen, a very warm welcome to you. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right.
Great to have you here today. So, Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role and how you came to start Pocket Creatives?
Sure. So, Pocket Creatives has been running for, we're going to our third official year now. I run it with two other business partners. And we've built ourselves up so far to a team of four employed staff as well. We do photography, we do video, and actually we don't really shut our doors to any kinds of work. So we bucked a trend really, and we went against a lot of the advice that you're typically given when you start a company of pick one thing and be great at that. We rebelled against that because actually part of the fun of what we do is in the variety that comes from what gets thrown at you from one day to the next. People that go into a creative job tend to go into a creative job because that's what they really, really, really want to do, rather than being strong-armed or forced into doing this just to earn some money. And so part of this for us really is that we're building a business that we can enjoy being in and working in for the long term, and that we get some satisfaction at the end of the day of going, that's great, we've just created this and it looks great, and client's happy and it's doing its job. My journey sort of towards getting to this point has been quite long really. I didn't walk out of college or university and go, right, that's it, I'm going to drop straight into this and expect that to be the case forever. Although I think at the time, if you'd have asked me if that was possible, I'd have gone, oh yeah, go on, and if it is possible, I'll do that. But I went via a couple of different roles that weren't necessarily ideal for me, but that I knew were going to give me a good number of skills and a really good sort of base to actually think about what I wanted to do for the long term of my career rather than just the short term. And as you noted, I started in broadcast. My sort of educational side, I started the GCSEs and really fell in love with media studies at that time. Pursued that through to A-level and did really well. That was the only real one that I sort of came away with a top grade, and you could sort of see that I'd put so many of my time and energy into that, and it didn't quite sort of reflect the same for the other courses. Which I don't regret, although it would have been nice to have had at the time a better sort of range of A-level grades across the board. But hey, and I was incredibly lucky to find out that a specialist broadcasting college with a great reputation was only 3 miles away from where I lived. So going through all of the university process, I took a little bit of a risk and pushed just towards the one, whereas of course you're advised to apply for sort of 2 or 3 just so you've got some backup options. For me, there was no backup option. The backup option was to go out there and get a job. I had my heart set on getting into Ravensbourne, which was down in Kent at the time. It's since moved up to Greenwich. And I think it was partly that because I really knew what I wanted to do, even though I was probably a little bit too young and not experienced enough for the course that I was applying for, because they could see I was quite dedicated to it and a little bit of promise in the work that I was creating, certainly at A-level, I think that they decided to take a punt on me really, and I certainly repaid that with working hard. I made the most out of my 2 years there, producing well over 20 independent programs and projects, and I just had fun. immediately you sort of, if you pick a course that you're interested in as well, I think that makes a massive difference. And not forgetting that if you're doing, again, even to study something that you really want to study, it doesn't make getting up in the morning quite as hard. You're not going and saying, oh God, I've got to go and do this in maths or physics or whatever, if it's not your main focus of interest, to go and all of a sudden realize that module 1 is camera operating, module 2, on a Wednesday, you're going to spend a day learning studio lighting. On Friday, you're going to pick up a load of expensive microphones. You're sitting there going, it's like a kid in a toy shop. And that really set me on my way. And I think, very fittingly for why we're having this conversation now, is that part of the prerequisite for getting into that course, as well as the prerequisite for getting grades to come away with, is that I had to undertake work experience placements. And that, without a doubt, that really set me on my way. That was such a crucial aspect for me, because as a 16-year-old kid, you can get a part-time job, you can learn how a till works, you can learn how to speak to people, you can learn how to make tea and coffee, which is incredibly important for any job typically you go into. Universal skill if you can do it well.
Yeah.
I got very lucky with my school, having some contacts that got me some work experience to kick off with. Not only did it reaffirm that I really wanted to go into this industry, but it also meant that I got a chance to see what the reality of being in the industry is like. And of course, working in TV, film, photography, anything like that, your brain's telling you that everything's just going to be like, Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. You're going to walk in and everything's going to be amazing and wonderful. And actually, there's loads of that, but there's also huge amounts of hard graft. There's huge amounts of problems if anything goes wrong. There's a whopping amount of responsibility on your shoulders, even if you're only on work experience. And that will suit lots of people, but it really won't suit a lot of others. And I think at that point, had I have not been quite sociable and quite strong and bullish, and I really wanted to be in the industry, it does put a lot of people off, particularly as if you come out of college or university having done a broadcast or a media qualification, and your intention is media, TV, video production or something similar, then your starting point very, very often is not one where you're going to be using all the equipment. You're not going to be leaving university and all of a sudden becoming a director for television, even though that's what they train you for, and that's the skills that they're trying to equip you with. As I said earlier, the best skill that you can come away with is the one that allows you to take a runner's job.
Yeah, I was about to say that. You're starting off as a runner, researcher, and then from there moving on to more responsibilities, maybe broadcast assistant, and then from there, yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Sorry, yeah, carry on. Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing just then. Yeah.
I'll have a tendency to waffle, so jump in.
No. Carry on. This is great. I'm just listening to everything that you're saying, and I can clearly see when I speak to a lot of students, I can see, just yesterday, I was speaking to a student who said to me she wanted to be a director. And I said, fantastic, go for it. It's a great career. However, be prepared to start at the bottom. You're not just going to go straight into directorship. Yeah. You might have to be a runner for some time. You might have to, it means going to the post office, collecting mail, coming back, or whatever it is that runners do. But, the point that you're making was fantastic. And I'm sorry for interrupting. So sorry, carry on.
Sorry. And so sort of building on your point there, that is what some people do struggle with. It's being at 1 minute at an incredibly well-equipped university or college where you're getting your hands on everything. You've got that sort of slight taste of power that you've got. You might take producers or a director's position on the projects that you're undertaking at uni, and doing some great work. And then the next minute, you've agreed to take a job somewhere where you're a runner or you're an assistant, and mentally that's actually quite difficult to come to terms with, because you're going in there saying, well, actually, I've done loads of directing. And of course, your slightly younger brain tells you that you can do that as well as experienced professionals that might have had another sort of 5-10 years experience of actually doing that as a job in the real world. And I remember lots of people getting disillusioned, actually coming out at the same sort of time as me from college, and actually didn't really enjoy going into the industry at that junior level. And there's a huge amount of luck involved as well, huge amounts of luck. I like to think I've made what I've worked hard to make what I've become now, and that's certainly true of the effort and energy I've put in. But I have also become very lucky along the way that my work experience placements have been good. The people I've worked with have been incredible, and I've had some wonderful mentors and people that have looked after me as they have others to nurture them through the companies that we've been with. And that's been amazingly important. And you do look back and go, actually, I wouldn't have been here had it not have been for these 20 people at different stages along the journey that have helped keep me either refocusing on the right job then to go for your next step, or teaching you specific skills, or in some cases giving you a hard lesson about, look, this role is for this amount of hours every day, and you've got to make sure you're turning up in the morning bright and bubbly. Clients need to see you energized, happy, smiley, supportive, and able to take on all the things that they want to entrust you with. And certainly when you're younger, those things don't always come naturally. Sometimes it's like sort of exercising a muscle. Sometimes it takes a little while to build up to that point to then sort of really get that resilience.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think it is those skills. I mean, you say that you were lucky and you were fortunate, but I think, I think, is it the same preparation? Is it preparation and luck meeting at the same time? Can't quite remember what it was, but the point is the fact that you were willing to work hard, turning up on time, all these other skills that people don't really put at the forefront, you took that serious. And I suppose that enthusiasm and energy and willing to work hard was seen by employers who were then willing to support and help you. Because by just seeing somebody who's engaging, somebody who wants to be there, somebody who's taking part, naturally you'd want to help that person a bit more. It's just a natural human tendency. So I suppose that gratitude and that hard work that you put in was really what made put you where you are today. So yeah, we can say it was luck, and I'm sure luck had a part to play in it, but certainly those skills had a major part in terms of where you are today. Would you agree to that?
I think probably sort of reframing it as maybe making your own luck is probably the best way of sort of categorizing it, maybe, in that, yes, I people wouldn't have invested the time and energy in me had I not have shown willing and shown the effort and the hard work back. That's certainly for sure. And I suppose the more of that you put in, the more willing you show, the more people will return that favour from a more senior position, which then means that you're looking more likely at promotions or moving into job roles that perhaps you do want. So there's definitely a huge amount of give and take. And I look back on my days in TV where I got to quite an advanced level with quite a big team of around 10 people working underneath me directly. And I was then all of a sudden in a position of judging which people I wanted to promote in my team, which people that were outside of my team that I might have wanted to bring in to replace people who were leaving or when we were due to expand. And of course, you do look for people who, even though they're not really in your team yet, who have got a good reputation for hard work and who are willing to go over and above to prove that they should be in your team. And it's certainly in television, there's definitely an element of it being a rite of passage. I remember back to the conversations I used to have with people coming in on work experience and new runners who were joining. And the first thing I'd say to them is, look, your job now is to work as hard as you can to get out of being a runner as quickly as possible. And some people would heed that and they go, fine, I know exactly what that means. I need to make sure that I'm being ultra sociable, ultra happy, ultra friendly, doing it genuinely, of course, not just going around and sort of paying lip service.
Being a pain.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people were a pain that they could demonstrate all of their skills and abilities, and other people didn't quite get it. And you could quite quickly see which ones, you then have your eye on for who you would then promote versus those you were expecting that, either it might take a bit longer or probably they're not destined to get out of being in a runner's position anytime soon. Actually, the best example I can give, a very good friend of mine who's very prominent in the TV industry as an editor and does a lot of work that has won awards, and he's fantastic. He came in as a runner, and he helped me so much, going out of his way, out of hours, days that he shouldn't have been working. He came in on days off when he could see that the workloads were really heavy and that he could actually make a difference in making my working weekend a little bit easier. He knew that I put him on the map, but also he was just wired that way. He was very happy to make sure that if he could make other people happy and help support with what they were doing, then that would make him happy as well. And so people like that, you go, great, we'll have you. And he got himself up very, very quickly to an advanced level in that business. As I say, he's moved on. He's never looked back. He's going great guns.
Isn't that incredible? From a runner to an editor. Jonathan Ross is another example that comes to mind. He started off in TV as a runner, and onto the Jonathan Ross show, and taking over the world. Yeah. So if you're willing to put the work in, and this is so important to those of you watching who want to go into media and TV, if you're willing to put the work in, as we've heard Stephen say, you can get there to an editor's position, and that's incredible. Now, obviously, we've you've got your business; it's doing great. You've got some incredible clients, very high profile, big names that we all know. How was it? How was the process in setting up your business? Was it an easy process? How did you go about doing it, and what's your day-to-day like?
So I took a slightly, well, actually at the time it was a slightly unorthodox route, whereas actually now with the COVID problems that everybody is encountering, so I set my first business up alongside my TV broadcasting job. As I mentioned earlier, moving into broadcasting and moving into the editing side actually was nothing that I was interested in. I moved into doing that job because it was initially a way out of working on the high street. I actually worked at Argos before going into my first TV job, which was part-time weekends. I was basically just capturing from tapes, and that would take all weekend, and that was my relevant part-time job. I was offered a full-time job from that, which is absolutely not what I wanted, and I made it quite clear at the time. Not a good thing to do. However, I think I fit in quite well there at the time, and they were quite keen to have me. And certainly at that age, going, well, all right, it's nice to be wanted for a job that I might not want now, but actually I very quickly made peace with the fact that if I learned how to edit and I learned all the technical background of the editing process, actually that would make me much better when it comes to being a director, being a producer, and whatever might be in store later in my journey. But I was able to come out of college with 2 clients already that I'd worked with on sort of semi-commercial projects through the college. And they came back to me and wanted to work with me again, which then forced me to set up as a sole trader so that I could legally take that money. And, even if it was just a matter of sort of paying my own expenses at the time, I had a nice little budget for a first project that allowed me to buy my first camera. And actually setting up as being self-employed is incredibly easy. You've got to make sure your record keeping is pretty decent. But actually, I think it gives you the confidence, if you are self-employed, to then go out and go, well, actually, I can give myself a company name. I can add an element of branding if I want. I can have a website that doesn't necessarily just have to be around my name. And you then start feeling like you're building an entity. Of course, it's all about the clients. If you can be the best director in the world, but if you haven't got anyone to work with, then your great work will never be seen. And I think my journey took me from that position. I then left broadcasting to then take on my own company full time. And I had a team of 2 back then working out of my spare bedroom. So we had to sort of keep all of our overheads down. It's a hugely transitional period, but at the time it was great because we had a team of 3 of us that loved what we did. We had some wonderful clients. We got to travel the world to make travel videos. We found ourselves in halfway across Europe, Africa, and it was an incredible few years of doing that kind of project. That was a bit of luck, but again, we worked hard to make sure that we could continually get recommissioned to do these projects. And then we had the government changed its funding, and half of our client base that was around heritage museums. We did a lot of work with the Museum of London, with Tower Bridge, National Portrait Gallery. The government at that time, this is 10 years ago now, adjusted the way that it funded for those, and they all of a sudden had to completely restrict any external work. And all of a sudden, our client base dropped from what was something that was quite nice every month to maybe a quarter of what we needed. And I then was approached by my old boss's husband to start up, to merge my company with his, as his company was a bit more corporate. It was growing really fast. They were doing fantastically well. And they offered to merge with us to then start a new entity, slightly bigger, that was much more corporate focused. And so I then sort of felt that I'd had a great amount of very creative work from a very technical background, and then looking after heritage projects which were built around special needs and education with special needs, things very, very different to the corporate world that I was about to go into, but then managed to adapt. What I would say largely is that all these industries are so heavily built around the quality of the people that you're with. And I inherited and was instrumental in building, alongside my new business partners, a wonderful, wonderful team of people that were just friends more than they were colleagues. I go back to the comment I made right at the beginning, that if you feel like you're not at work every day, it makes it easy to get up. You enjoy your job much, much more. It feels much, much less like a job. And actually, this business allowed us to feel like we were a group of friends all working together on cool projects that we really enjoyed. And again, this involved lots of world travel. It involved very, very long hours. It involved putting some really detailed, heavy pitches together to win big, big projects, and some really sort of extra skills that I'd never had to learn before that were so far out of my comfort zone. But sitting down in boardrooms and pitching for thousands of pounds worth of work off the back of doing maybe 3 weeks work to build a proposal, was things that I'd never really done before, but had to teach myself, had to learn, had to make peace with it, and had to learn how to enjoy doing that as well. And my role sort of maneuvered in different ways over the 6 years, I think, that I was there. I lose track, and had a wonderful time, and decided to leave sort of four to 5 years ago, so that I could focus a bit more on less corporate work and something that was much more geared for public consumption through social media, short form, and then add photography to that as well. And I'd the point that I was considering moving on and starting again. Part of it as well, I'm a little bit of a megalomaniac. I like having my own my own space, my own company, the freedom to make my decisions. And of course, if you're with business partners and you've got a business that is quite large, individually as a business partner, you don't quite have that flexibility. No fault on the company's part, but that's just sort of wired in me, that if I'm making decisions and I'm having to perform certain actions, I'd rather they all be entirely on my shoulders rather than having to sort of fulfill things that maybe I don't always agree with. And that is the reality of being in any business. You'll always be asked to do things that you don't want to do, and you have to do them for the sake of the health of your company,
keeping the lights on. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And being able to make all the decisions that I know that I want to was really important to me, certainly at that stage of my sort of career as well. So decided, difficult move, start again, build a new business. And again, slightly by chance, I'd met two 16-year-olds who didn't want to go into further education, but that we'd been doing some small projects on the side, largely based around photography initially, actually, which I'd seen as a little bit of sort of creative therapy more than anything. It's nice to be able to, on one hand, go and work on £100,000 project with shed loads of stress and expectation. It's also lovely, on the other hand, to go and do a couple of projects for someone where you're standing out in a field at 6 a.m, where you've got some lovely light, making some really cool looking photographs. And the balance of these things help you to remember what you got into the industry for in the first place. And they help to remind you that actually this is a hobby as much as it is a business. And the more sort of seriousness that, events take as you go forward with having overheads, having a team, having an office, bills to pay, it sometimes can be really tricky keeping your hooks into that memory that you started this because you loved making visual stuff. Certainly not true of every industry, of course, but certainly in this, you get into it because you want to. You're not forced. You get into doing this because that's what you dream about doing. Anyway, long story short, set up this company with two new business partners. We have an understanding where even though the shareholdership is slightly uneven, our operating model is that the three of us are equal business partners. We're all responsible for making the decisions. We've all got desires in different areas. So one of my two business partners looks after the company's scheduling, organization, is moving more into creative management, directing and producing alongside. The other is incredibly technically driven, very creative driven, and loves getting his hands on and making stuff. He's like a younger version of what I once upon a time used to be. Whereas my experience now is much more geared towards sales, marketing, managing director tasks. Although my job role at the moment is still wrapped into being a creative director, because I do provide that direction to the business as a whole. Actually, I could be creative director / managing director / sales director / marketing director / bad cup of tea maker. And it has to cover so many things. We've got a lovely working relationship where we've got full trust with each other. We all do what we're good at and allowed to do what we're good at. At the same time, we are all responsible for running the business. And that mentality actually drips down into our employed staff as well, who, again, they're treated more like friends and family. We don't run around keeping anything too formal. Not every business can afford to run that way, of course, but we're incredibly fortunate to have a wonderful team who really work very, very hard every day, that we trust to get on with what they do, and they in turn pay us back by getting on with it and getting it done. And this past year, more so than any, we've been able to prove to our team that we will do everything possible to look after our company and our team. And they've proven they'll do everything they can from their side to do exactly the same. And we're as indebted to them for helping look after and manage our business as we are to them for the efforts and energies that they put in every day. And that mutual respect has been crucial and is hugely instrumental in what we've built up. Moral of the story being is that pick the right people to work with.
Incredible. Yeah. What an incredible story, absolutely unique in itself, that journey that you've had to go on. And I'm sure, you wouldn't change anything at all, because obviously that would have made you the person that you are today. When I think about your story, I think there's a lot of similarities to Casey Neistat. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's an incredible YouTuber who's gone through a similar sort of journey, very creative, um, did projects for huge companies such as Sony, but that corporate life wasn't really what he wanted to do. So he put his attention on YouTube, and is gone to, I don't know how many million views and subscribers, but it's an incredible journey to get to where you've got to today. And of course, there'll be a lot of people watching this and thinking, I'd love to do what you're doing, but I don't have that confidence. How can somebody watching you have that confidence to do what you're doing?
There's two things. First of all, get that work experience, because this industry is built around being sociable largely, and it's about personal connections, and it's about trust. So you have to get out there and meet people and experience what those jobs are like and what's expected of you, and what you can then learn to do to then advance your career as, I guess, as quickly and as sensibly as possible, and as pleasurably as possible, really, as well. So that's really, really key to this. Loads of companies in broadcasting regularly take on work experience people. Appreciate at the moment it's still a tricky year with the restrictions that we're all living and working under, but in standard times, every production company and post-production company are used to taking on work experience, and it's really interesting to go and do it and to see whether or not you like that area of television as well. Some people just go, look, I want to work in TV, don't know what I want to do yet, and that's perfectly fair. You shouldn't necessarily know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life at 16 or between 16 and 20. That's a completely unrealistic expectation of any young person, to have to tick a box and go, that's my career for life now. It doesn't have to be that way, and actually it shouldn't be that way. You should go and experience the world, experience work, and see what you enjoy doing. A lot of people think that being an editor means going to an edit suite, having 4 or 5 people around that you can all sort of work to build your best version of your edit. Actually, being a different kind of editor on different kind of programs with different deadlines sometimes mean that you might be working your own in a dark room for 15 hours. Sometimes you might be expected to sleep in your edit suite if you're doing a weekend edit for something that might need to be released late that evening on the next morning. You might have some really highly strung people around you who are geared to getting the best out of everything, but that does mean that you're kept on your toes a lot more. You've got to be able to respond to that, whereas other edit jobs might entirely rely on people sending in the material and a very loose brief and saying go and then you've got to use your own ingenuity to make something out of that. Sometimes that will be what the client wants, sometimes it won't. And the other part of that learning curve then is learning how to understand that different people might want different things, and what you've done, even if you're being criticized for what you might have done, might not be wrong, might just not be right for what the client's looking for at that point. And so you have to learn then how to take that on the chin, have a deep breath, and then pick yourself up and carry on again. And those skills you don't get unless you're at work for a good number of years. I'm still learning how to positively take negative criticism. There are some days where someone will send me a response back to something that I've done, and I'll go, no, that's not right. What I've done is completely right. 2 days later, after I've thought about it, I'll have gone, actually, no, I completely understand what you're saying now. And then the way of responding to that will be a bit different. But wow, waffled again. Going back to your original question, get that work experience for one, get yourself around people for 2. And actually, we're so well set up now in this country with the whole creative community aspect that you can just go out and work with people on cheap projects, free projects, where everybody is just collaborating to create something because they want to. And that's a really, really good way of building up your confidence, seeing what different roles might entail, and learning yourself how to develop your own skills to fit what might be the next or the first step in your career journey. So those two things would be my best starting point. Anyone that's looking to leave and go and start their own business straight away, it is entirely doable. However, expect it to be hard. It doesn't matter how good you are at making something. If you don't have a business built around it and the ability to attract clients, look after those clients, and deliver for those clients, the business will be short-lived. And that's, I guess, what I've learned at varying levels of severity, I guess, over the last 18 years, really, is that if you haven't got a strong business behind your creative won't last. And there are lots of companies that start up and don't make it, even though they might be able to create some fantastic work. If you're not paying the bills, your business just won't last. And that's hard for a young person to know how to manage that.
That's excellent advice. Thank you again for sharing that with us. What do you enjoy most about what you do?
For me, it's changed over the course of the years, but certainly at the moment, I enjoy the people, and I enjoy the satisfaction of being able to having had the ability to create jobs, make great work, and see our little company gradually getting better and better, and actually looking more and more attractive to bigger and smaller clients. We were shooting a TV advert on Monday. That is not particularly common for a business of our size. And this is not the first TV work that we have done, completely against what I expected we would be able to achieve in 3 to 4 years of working. And it is all down to the people. Every single thing we do is down to the team that we have around us. And I suppose if there's another sort of little nugget in there, really, it's not to do everything yourself. Some people are happier to work on their own, and that's perfectly fine. But mentally, for your own personal resilience and strength, having those people around you immediately helps share the load. And it's been a difficult last year for us with COVID, the same as it has been for the vast majority of businesses. You know, we haven't been forced to close throughout the whole duration, but having business partners and a wider team to discuss how we're going to handle being closed for 2 months. It's not the sort of thing anyone imagines that they will do, but that's a very different prospect versus having to sit down at your laptop and go, okay, I've got no work for 3 months and no ability to earn any income. What the hell do I do? That's a very different prospect compared to the former. And I think that's the proudest that I can be, really, is over the course of my career having nurtured some good people, but also having some great partnerships with people as well. And that's made it for me. That's been brilliant.
Good leadership, definitely.
Hopefully so.
So what are the plans for the future? What can we expect?
Well, as I say, as a company, we're still a baby. We're in year 3. We are navigating our way through keeping ourselves going at a difficult time, which is largely going well. We've got some plans, we've got some contingency plans, but we actually took some big steps in the summer to expand the team and to move into a studio and out of our previously small office space. So we actually haven't really got going yet with all the potential that our team at this size can deliver. But actually it's been so stop-start throughout 2020, and it feels like it's going to be so stop-start until the end of the spring, maybe early summer this year. But we've already got so much headroom available for growth within what we have, without actually having to do very much. So it's hard to say. I guess from an outsider looking in, seeing the number of projects and the quality of the projects that we're delivering go up and up. We're also trying to diversify even more in strengthening areas that we perhaps don't get as much work in. So typically our work is based around food and drink, beauty, health and well-being brands. We do some fashion work each year. We do some crowdfunding. We have done a lot of events work up until last year. But the secret to sort of keeping ourselves going really is having that variety. As I mentioned earlier on, what we will be able to do as things start opening up again is to refocus on strengthening our business areas around fashion, which rely on you shooting around more people, which I guess has become harder in the last year, and around the events work as well. But we're also taking this time to upskill everybody in different areas as well, based around largely what they want to do. No point in saying to someone, you've got to learn this, even though you're going to hate it. You're not going to get that return from that member of staff when we get a project in. So, you know, of course, there are times where you do have to, and you're forced to do that, but there's a way of doing it. But actually, I'd rather say to the team, as we do at the end of the year, what do you actually want to learn next? And then if you can find a way of monetizing that as part of your business, then you're able to add a new service for something that you've got a willing member of the team who's going to go, oh yeah, all right, I'll take that one, rather than, oh God, all right, yeah, I'll do that next time. And I think that is largely how we build our business. It's around keeping everybody happy while still managing to make sure that we fit the business demand in the sectors that we work within.
Thank you again for sharing that. And how can people find out more about yourself and Pocket Creators?
Well, our shop window is the website, which is pocketcreatives.co.uk. It's certainly in the last 3 years, actually realizing that is the place that most people will get their information about you. We've invested a huge amount of time in that, to the point that one day it will need someone to manage that full time. That is our equivalent of a shop owner looking after their bricks and mortar and looking after their shop window. And we very much treated it like that. It's gone a little bit out of control. It's a bit unruly this the start of the year with all the new things that we've been doing. So it may well sort of be chopped back, but that's a great starting point for seeing what we do and how we do it.
Stephen, thank you again so much for taking this time to talk to us. First of all, I think you'll make a fantastic careers advisor. Just listening to the things that you were saying, there's some great advice. When you're 16 to 18, you're not expected to have it all figured out. That's the time to be creative and to explore and think about what it is that you want to do. And I think, you say that you were fortunate in terms of the people that you met along your journey, especially as you were going into college and then from work experience and the other opportunities that ultimately presented themselves. But I think for me, your personality, just a warm, friendly person, I think that would have gone a long way. And I think a lot of times people would look at how you make them feel, and then, you have this way of bringing people in and letting them be part of your story and be part of who you are. And I suppose that's where the creative genius in you comes from. But it's incredible again just to have you on this show, sharing this incredible journey, which still has more to come. And I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about Pocket Creatives in the future. And again, a fantastic industry. It's very competitive, but you've certainly succeeded and done well. And I just want to say thank you again for taking the time to sit down and talk to us today. Thank you.
Very welcome. Very welcome.